In a galaxy where alien civilizations measure predators by claws, teeth, and muscle, one human student is asked to name Earth's apex predator. His answer, himself, sparks laughter, disbelief, and suspicion. But when an ecological disaster strikes the station's priceless biodome, his claim is put to the test. Armed with nothing more than a notebook, a pocket tool, and the stubborn human instinct to solve problems others think impossible, he discovers the crisis isn't a disease, it's fear. Something in the harmless, cleaning solution is triggering a deep, ancient terror in the ecosystem's key species. To save the biodome, he must outthink corporate power, convince academic elites, and prove once and for all that humanity's greatest weapon isn't strength or speed, it's the ability to see what no one else does, and act. Professor Oak's lecture hall smelled like hospital air, sterile, sharp, dry enough to make Samir's throat itch. 200 alien students sat in perfect rows, their elongated limbs and strange faces focused on the holographic projection at the center of the amphitheater. And here we see the tan megalodon, Oak droned. His slate-gray skin caught the projection's blue light as he gestured toward the image of the prehistoric shark, 20 meters of perfect, ancient predation. A copper-skinned Elathi student raised her hand. Surely this must be Earth's apex predator. Incorrect, interrupted a Vexian with obsidian skin that seemed to drink the light. The orca demonstrates superior cooperative hunting strategies. Samir sank lower in his seat, fighting a smirk. Same thing every class. Show aliens a few Earth predators, watch them argue like kids comparing trading cards. Teeth versus claws. Speed versus stealth. Nobody ever got it. The debate ping-ponged across the room, saltwater crocodiles, polar bears, even mosquitoes, earning the suggester a glare from Oak. Then the professor's large, unblinking eyes found him. Mr. Kadam, Oak said, his voice making Samir's surname sound like a sneeze. You've been quiet. Perhaps you'd grace us with the Terran perspective. What is Earth's apex predator? 200 alien eyes fixed on him. Samir sat up slowly, like a big cat pretending to wake from a nap. He didn't speak. He smiled, not the polite, diplomatic smile from orientation videos, but something older, sharper, and tapped his chest. The laughter was instant. A Gorno in the front row snorted, a wet, gurgling sound. The Zathi who championed T-Rex shook with amusement. Fascinating, Oak said flatly. You believe humans are Earth's apex predator? Do elaborate. Samir stood. At barely 170, he was shorter than most in the room. His jumpsuit was stained with old coffee. He looked about as dangerous as a laundry pile. You're measuring the wrong thing, he said. You're looking for the biggest teeth. That's not the metric. Oak's head tilted, a gesture his species probably thought looked thoughtful, but mostly made him resemble a confused owl. Then what is the correct metric? Samir walked to the front, hands in his pockets, steps slow and deliberate. The apex predator isn't the one that wins a fight, he said. Any idiot with enough muscle can win a fight. It's the one that wins the evolutionary war. The one that can burn down a forest to draw out all the prey. That, Oak said carefully, sounds wasteful. Exactly, Samir said, grin widening. Magnificently wasteful. Because it can afford to be. Because it doesn't just survive in the world, it rewrites it. A Vexian student raised a hand. You claim humans are apex predators because of environmental destruction. I'm saying, Samir replied, every other predator evolved to fit into an ecosystem. Humans looked at ecosystems and said, cute. Now move, we're putting a parking lot here. We didn't grow claws, we built knives. We didn't grow fur, we wore other animals' skins. We couldn't see in the dark, so we set the dark on fire until it stopped being dark. He gestured to the lecture hall's artificial lighting. Every other species adapts to its environment. We make the environment adapt to us. And when it won't, we build a new one. A voice in the back muttered, primitive boasting. Samir's head snapped toward the sound, eyes cold. You're on a space station, he said. Your ancestors evolved under another sun, breathing different air, eating things I couldn't even recognize. But here you are, alive, because someone, maybe someone a lot like humans, looked at the void and said, we could build a university here. Oak's throat clicked. Interesting philosophy. But we seek biological advantages, not cultural arrogance. You want biology? Samir flicked open the knife blade on his multi-tool. Several students flinched. This is steel. Show me an animal that can turn rock into this. Show me claws sharper than the brain that said, lightning. I want that in my house. He snapped the blade shut. We're persistence hunters. We can't outsprint a gazelle, but we can follow it for days until it drops. We sweat to cool down when others hide from the sun. Other predators sprint. We marathon. We made our hunting strategy into a children's game called tag. Now the room was silent. Oak looked unsettled. The apex predator, Samir said softly, isn't the one with the biggest teeth. It's the one that makes the rules. Decides which species live, and which end up in museums. The one having this conversation in orbit because one planet got boring. The silence stretched, until a sharp alarm split the air. Screens across the hall flashed the same message, ecological emergency. Biodome A-10. All senior staff report. Oak's eyes widened. Class dismissed. As the others filed out, muttering, Samir stayed at the front, staring at the frozen hologram of the megalodon. Cute fish, he murmured. Bet it couldn't fix a broken ecosystem. The maintenance corridor under Section C reeked of industrial solvents and recycled air. Samir found Dale exactly where he always was during shift breaks, wedged into a shadowed alcove behind the water recyclers, mug of something black and oily in one hand. Dale's massive Gorak frame looked carved from stone, his bony brow permanently furrowed. He'd been the first person on the station to treat Samir like a coworker instead of a curiosity. Thought you had class, Dale grunted. Got out early, Samir said. Ecological emergency in the biodome. Dale snorted. Everything's an emergency with these people. Clogged toilet. Critical sanitation event. Wrong sneeze. Potential biological cascade. He gestured with his mug. What's a student doing down here with us real workers? Samir produced 2 slim cylinders from his jacket pocket, real earth cigarettes. Dale's scowl softened. You beautiful bastard. They lit up. The smoke curled toward the vent grates, carrying a smell the station AI instantly hated. Reminder, chirped Dale's implant, smoking is prohibited in all university facilities. A healthy worker is a productive worker. Shut up, Gleed, Dale muttered. The implant chirped again. Environmental systems upgraded last week. Part of the Vexagen Total Environmental Integrity Package. Same folks who make this crap. Dale reached under the bench and pulled out a spray bottle of clear liquid. Samir took it, sniffed, and almost gagged. The smell wasn't just odorless, it was aggressively nothing, so blank it made his brain itch. Awful. Tell me about it. Been spraying it in the biodome for a week. Plants hate it. Not that anyone listens to the janitor. Somewhere deeper in the station, another alarm began wailing. The university's warning systems cried wolf so often that no one ran anymore. Dale glanced sideways. Heard you spooked Oak's class today. Samir shrugged. They asked. I answered. You told them humans are the apex predator. We are. Dale grinned like rocks grinding together. Sure. And I'm a ballerina. Who said anything about fighting fair? Dale jabbed a finger at him. That right there. That's why your species scares people. Not because you're strong. Because you're proud of being sneaky. Before Samir could answer, a third alarm joined the first two. The lights flickered amber. Dale's implant seized in a burst of static. Alert. All maintenance staff report to Section A. Alert. Yeah, I heard you the first time. Dale crushed his cigarette. Duty calls. Samir eyed the spray bottle. Mind if I keep this? Knock yourself out. I've got cases of the stuff. Dale started down the corridor, then paused. That thing you said about fighting fair? That's the smartest thing I've heard all day. When he was gone, Samir turned the bottle in his hands. Harmless looking. Odorless. The kind of thing no one questioned. Exactly the kind of thing that could quietly destroy an ecosystem. The Athenaeum's observation gallery was meant for tourists, though Samir had never seen one here. Transparent aluminum panels overlooked the biodome below, 50 hectares of engineered paradise now wilting in slow motion. The crowd pressed against the windows in anxious silence. Samir pulled a pair of battered binoculars from his pack, old-school optics, not digital, and began scanning. The flutterwings should have been everywhere, zipping between flowers in a rainbow shimmer. Instead, he found only clusters of them, hiding, huddled in tight spaces near ventilation intakes. Not feeding. Not mating. Just, hiding. It wasn't disease. Pathogens spread, this was concentrated avoidance. Like deer staying upwind of wolves. An hour in, his notebook was filling with sketches and coordinates. 2 hours, and the pattern was too clear to ignore. The closer to the main vents, the fewer flutterwings you saw. 3 hours, and he was certain. The vents weren't just blowing air. They were blowing fear. Find something interesting? Samir turned. The speaker was a young Vexian woman with skin polished to a mirror sheen. Designer clothes. Expensive perfume. Money in every detail. Maybe, Samir said. I'm Xra Ashi, she said smoothly. My family's company is handling the remediation. If you've observed something useful, you should tell someone who can do something with it. There it was, the silk-covered superiority of someone used to getting answers. Samir nodded toward the glass. Your people are looking for a pathogen. Because it is a pathogen, she said, as if correcting a child. They're not sick, Samir said. They're scared. She laughed like breaking crystal. Scared? They're insects, they're more like hummingbirds. If hummingbirds were telepathic and saw in ultraviolet. Look at their positions. Not random. They're hiding near vents. That's not illness. That's a predator response. Her perfect poise cracked. There are no predators in the biodome. Controlled environment. Samir pulled the spray bottle from his jacket. Your family make this? She glanced at it. Our sanitation division, yes. Why? When did they start using it? She hesitated. 2 weeks ago. It's harmless. We tested, on standard species, Samir finished. Here's a fact, on Earth, some flowers evolved to smell exactly like female wasps. Males come looking for a mate, get covered in pollen instead. All based on scent. Now imagine your cleaning solution smells, to the flutterwings, exactly like something that eats them. Her eyes widened despite herself. That would be catastrophic. Samir capped his binoculars. Yeah. So here's your problem, your product doesn't smell like nothing to them. It smells like death. She was quiet a moment. Then, why help us? This could destroy my family's reputation. Because, Samir said with a slow grin, that's what apex predators do. We see a problem. We fix it. Not because we have to. Because we can. Professor Oak's office looked like chaos had tried to be organized and given up. Physical books fought for space with datapads, specimen jars, and what looked like the skeleton of something with too many legs. Oak himself sat behind a desk that might have been wood or a very good imitation. His large eyes blinked slowly behind reading lenses. "Absolutely not," he said, before Samir even finished talking. "Professor, Mr. Kadam, do you understand what you're asking? The biodome is worth more than some planets. We have the best minds in the galaxy working on this. Actual experts. With degrees. With liability insurance. Your experts have been in there for 2 weeks," Samir said evenly. "And the ecosystem is still dying. Because they haven't isolated the pathogen yet. It's not a pathogen." Oak's fingers, too long, too thin, drummed on the desk. "So you've said. Based on what?" 3 hours with consumer-grade binoculars. "Based on observation," Samir said. "Something your experts might try if they looked up from their sensors. I'm not asking to run the operation. Just give me 12 hours to confirm what I'm seeing. And if you're wrong, then you've lost half a day. But if I'm right, if you're right," Oak cut in, "then one of our largest corporate partners has been inadvertently poisoning our biodome." Samir didn't blink. "I understand the implications. But in 48 hours, you might not have a biodome left to worry about." Silence. The only sound was the faint ticking of something buried in the wall, a clock, or its alien equivalent. "You were wrong in class," Oak said finally. "About? Apex predators. They are defined by their place in the food chain. Humans are omnivores. In many ecosystems, you're not even tertiary consumers. Your entire premise was flawed." Samir waited. He'd learned that Oak liked to circle his prey before striking. "But," the professor continued, "you were right about one thing. Humans do not follow rules. Not biological rules, not social rules. It's unsettling. So is that a yes?" "That is a, if you die in there, the university is not responsible. That is a, you will sign every waiver my legal department can create. And that is a, if you so much as breathe wrong on a protected species, I will have you expelled and deported. But it's a yes." Oak sighed like air leaking from a punctured tire. 12 hours. No equipment beyond basic tools. No interference with the remediation team. Observation only. And if I'm wrong, I'll go back to being the quiet human at the back of your class. Oak's mouth twitched. "Report to entrance 7 at 0600. Bring whatever primitive tools you think you need. And Mr. Kadam, yes, Professor. Try not to smile like that. It's disturbing. No promises." The biodome at 0600 was a cathedral of dying light. Morning filtered through the canopy in golden shafts, beautiful enough to break your heart, if you didn't notice how quiet it was. It should have been alive with the hum and thrum of flutterwings, their wings catching the light like prisms. Instead, only the whisper of climate control and the distant hum of machinery filled the air. Samir stepped through the service lock with one pack slung over his shoulder. The Vexian security guard scanned his clearance and gave him a look reserved for people on suicide missions. The smell hit first. Not decay, not yet, but the green turning brown at the edges. Plant stress pheromones, if his textbooks were right. He pulled out his notebook, real paper, and started walking. Past automated feeding stations still pumping sugar water for visitors who would never come. Past multilingual interpretive signs explaining how delicately balanced this ecosystem was. The Vexogen team was easy to avoid. They moved in predictable grid patterns, eyes on their scanners. Samir went the other way, slipping through maintenance paths and service corridors, letting his feet find the quiet. 2 hours in, he found his first major cluster, 30 meters up, crammed into a ventilation shaft. Wings overlapped like shattered stained glass. He sat cross-legged beneath them, just watching. No movement, no feeding. Only the occasional ripple of shivers through the group, like leaves in a faint wind. "Not sick," he muttered, jotting notes. Roosting pattern consistent with anti-predator response. Responding to what, though? He thought of deer freezing at the scent of wolves. Mice stilling under hawk shadows. His own ancestors huddled in caves, learning which smells meant death. The cleaning solution had to be it. Knowing wasn't enough. He needed proof. For more hours passed in a haze of fieldwork. Mapping clusters. Sketching stress postures. Cross-referencing vent positions with hiding patterns. By noon, half his notebook was filled. The map was clear, the flutterwings were avoiding the ventilation outputs, the same vents where Dale's circuit board funeral smell would be strongest. Footsteps approached. Heavy, mechanical, not trying for stealth. You the human? Samir turned. The Gornak maintenance worker was younger than Dale, but built the same, like someone had carved him out of basalt. Depends who's asking. Griff. Dale said you might want to see this. He hefted an industrial sprayer. New solution. Emergency protocol. Samir's eyes narrowed. Same manufacturer. Yeah. Different formula, though. Supposed to be stronger. Boss says spray everything twice. Samir took the sprayer, sniffed. Still aggressively nothing, but with a faint, sharp undertone. Wrong. They made it stronger, he said. That's good, right? Kill whatever's making them sick. They're not sick. Samir handed it back. Where are you starting? Section C. Then the whole dome. Samir considered. If I asked you to not spray there yet, how much do you like your job? Griff grunted. Dale said you might say that. He also said you gave him real cigarettes. I might have more. Griff's tusked mouth twitched. Then I'm listening. It took another hour to find a flutterwing that wasn't hiding, one in the quarantine dome, isolated before the crisis for a wing injury. The only one in the biodome still acting normal. There's your proof, Griff said, watching it flit between flowers. Only one not exposed to the cleaning stuff. Proof isn't enough, Samir said. We need a demonstration. From his pack, he produced a long pole made from lashed-together maintenance tools. At the end, a cloth soaked in the original cleaning solution. Crude. Functional. Human engineering at its finest. You sure about this? Griff asked. No. But being sure is for people with better options. They stepped through the quarantine airlock. The flutterwing ignored them, focused on a flowering vine. Samir moved slowly, placing the cloth 3 meters upwind. 4-5 seconds, nothing. Then the flutterwing's entire body convulsed. Wings snapped tight, proboscis retracted, and a thin, high sound pierced the air, a sound Samir had never heard but instinctively recognized, pure terror. It launched itself toward the nearest dark corner, wedging into a gap between two struts. Holy hell, Griff whispered. Samir pulled back the pole, sealing the cloth in a specimen bag. It thinks there's a predator. Doesn't matter if it's been extinct for 1,000,000 years. That fear's hardwired. Griff's communicator was already in his hand. I've got to tell the boss. Wait, Samir said, catching his arm. Tell Dale first. Document everything, times, locations, solution batches. Make a paper trail. Why? Because in about an hour, Samir said with a sharp smile, I'm going to accuse one of the university's biggest corporate partners of ecosystem genocide. And I want the credit to stick. The emergency faculty meeting felt like a funeral where no one liked the deceased, but everyone was pretending. The conference room hummed with tension, academics in muted robes, corporate reps in expensive fabrics, and a few Vexian security personnel watching everyone like hawks. Samir stood at the front, still in his stained jumpsuit, notebook open like evidence in a trial. At the head of the table, Professor Oak sat very still, his large eyes unreadable. This is preposterous, a deep, resonant voice rumbled. An older Vexian male sat beside a younger woman, Xra Ashi. The resemblance was unmistakable. Her father. Corporate royalty. Our products undergo rigorous testing on all standard species. Not on flutterwings, Samir cut in. Because testing on every species is economically unfeasible. Right? A muscle twitched in the older Vexian's jaw. Samir reached into his pack, pulled out the sealed cloth. This is your product, diluted to standard concentration. It causes an immediate predator panic response in flutterwings. They abandon feeding areas, hide until they starve. Xra's father gave a slow, dangerous smile. Based on what? The reaction of one injured specimen. Based on 300 documented hiding clusters, Samir said, flipping pages. All located farthest from ventilation outputs. Based on behavior consistent with anti-predator response in 6 observation points. And based on the fact that the only flutterwing acting normally is the one in quarantine, isolated before you started spraying. He pulled out his multi-tool, flicked open the magnifying glass. Do you know what makes humans apex predators? This. We look closer. We write things down. We see patterns. And when we find a problem, we fix it. Not with million-credit sensors, but with eyes and patience. Oak's voice was carefully neutral. While your observations are interesting, Mr. Cadam, we require more than anecdotal evidence. I've got the work orders, Griff's voice called from the doorway. The young Gornak stepped in, data pad in hand. Timestamps match perfectly with when the emergency calls started. All part of the mandatory usage directive from Vexagen. I also ran a field test in Section F. No cleaning solution for 6 hours, flutterwings came out. Sprayed one corner, they vanished. Unauthorized experiments, Xra's father snapped. Pest control, Griff said bluntly. Found the pest. It's your product. The elder Vexian's skin seemed to darken, a physiological stress response. This is a conspiracy. Clearly, Samir said softly, the human is trying to save your client's ecosystem. The question is whether you'll help, or keep pretending nothing's wrong. How dare, stop. Every head turned toward Xra. Her voice was calm but hard-edged. I reviewed our protocols. We never tested for behavioral impact. We never tested on species that rely primarily on chemical communication. We made it odorless to major species, yes, but we never considered that it might mimic a predator sent to others. Her father's voice was sharp. Xra, you do not have the authority. I have the authority to prevent a total ecological collapse that would bankrupt our company, she said coldly. Unless you'd rather explain to the board how we lost our biggest contract because you were too proud to listen to a human with a notebook. Silence stretched, thick and brittle. Oak broke it. Mr. Cadam, if you were in charge, what would you do? Clear the vents, Samir said without hesitation. Flush the air. Replace the solution with something neutral, vinegar, alcohol, hot water. Set up new feeding stations far from cleaned areas. Use recorded mating calls to draw them out. They're social, they'll follow each other. That's it? Oak asked. The solution is to stop scaring them, Samir said flatly. Everything else is just details. He closed his notebook. And maybe next time you try to build a perfect ecosystem, you consult someone who's actually lived in one. He turned for the door. Griff, if you ever want a job that doesn't involve corporate stupidity, call me. Pretty sure Earth's hiring. Mr. Cadam, Xra called after him. He paused in the doorway. Why help us? You could have let it collapse. Proved your point. Samir's smile was almost kind. Because breaking things is easy. Any idiot can break something. The apex predator is the one who understands the system well enough to fix it. 3 weeks later, the biodome was alive again. The hum of flutterwings filled the air like living music. Samir sat in the observation gallery, watching them flit between flowers in iridescent flashes. Admiring your handiwork? He didn't turn. Not mine. I just pointed out the obvious. Xra sat beside him. The board voted to recall the entire product line. It's costing millions. Better than billions. My father disagrees. He's been reassigned to our manufacturing division on Kepler 442p. That's 40 light-years from anything interesting. 43. She produced a bottle, amber liquid sloshing inside. Pre-war Earth whiskey. Samir accepted it, took a sip. The burn was perfect. I'm listening. A job offer, she said simply. New division, practical ecosystem management. No lab codes. No pure theory. Just people who understand that nature's more complicated than spreadsheets. Run by me. Significant autonomy. 3 colony worlds under jurisdiction. Why me? Because you were right. We've been so focused on controlling environments, we forgot to understand them. My family spent 3 generations building perfect systems. Maybe it's time we learn from people who've spent 3 million years breaking them. Samir looked back at the biodome, at a flutterwing preening its antenna. I get to hire my own team. Within budget. Griff comes with me. The janitor? The janitor who documented everything and saved your company's ass. Xra smiled faintly. Done. And I want access to every Earth ecological database. All of it. Why? Because humans have made every mistake possible. Cane toads, rabbits in Australia, sparrows in China. If you want to learn from the apex predator, you've got to understand we're apex because we survived our own stupidity. Is that a yes? Samir stood, stretching. Draw up the contract. I'll think about it. First, I owe Dale a drink and a smoke. The main viewport on level C offered the best view of the gas giant below, a swirling masterpiece of storms and colors that made Jupiter look understated. Samir stood there at what passed for sunset on the station, smoke from an Earth cigarette curling toward the ceiling. The taste was sharp and familiar, grounding him more than the artificial gravity ever could. His comm unit buzzed. Security alert, unauthorized combustion of organic materials. Right on cue, the security drone zipped around the corner, red lights flashing like an angry ornament. Warning, unauthorized combustion detected. Please extinguish and accept your fine. Samir took another drag. Add it to my tab. Second warning, security unit, stand down. Professor Oak's voice crackled through the drone speaker, dry as sandpaper. Override code, Oak Alpha 7. Mr. Kadam has discretionary privileges. The lights on the drone flickered from red to green. It hovered in confused silence, then zipped away. Samir smiled to himself. Thanks, Professor. Don't make me regret it, Oak's voice replied faintly, the sound of him walking away from whatever console he'd used. And Mr. Kadam, yeah. Being an apex predator doesn't mean you can smoke wherever you please. Samir smirked. Doesn't it, though? A pause, then Oak's voice, even quieter, I'll see you in class, Mr. Kadam. The biodome's dome glowed in the distance, golden with life. Inside, the flutterwings zipped between blooms, their iridescent wings catching the artificial sunlight. From here, no one would know how close it had all come to collapsing. Samir took another drag, then stubbed the cigarette out and pocketed the butt. Leave no trace, Ranger habit. He headed back toward the station's main promenade, weaving through the usual chaos of students, staff, and visitors. He found Dale in the same alcove behind the water recyclers. The Gorak was halfway through a mug of something unidentifiable. You look too happy, Dale grunted. Saved a biodome. Got offered a job. Dale snorted. Don't let it go to your head. Samir pulled out the whiskey Xra had given him and set it on the bench. Consider it thanks. Dale eyed the label, then looked up at him. Pre-war Earth? You're spoiling me. You earned it. Dale poured them each a measure in mismatched mugs. They drank in companionable silence for a while. You gonna take it? Dale asked eventually. Maybe. I get to hire my own team. Thinking I'll need someone who actually knows how to keep a place running. Dale's brow plates lifted slightly. You offering me a job? Just saying Earth's hiring. No corporate stupidity. Well, less corporate stupidity. The Gorak grinned like crumbling rock. I'll think about it. 2 days later, Samir stepped back into Oak's lecture hall. The professor was already mid-sentence when he saw him and stopped. Class, Oak said, this week's topic is communication strategies in apex predators. And our human colleague will be assisting. 200 alien faces turned toward Samir. He could almost feel the weight of their curiosity. Oak gestured toward the dais. Mr. Kadam, you once claimed humans were Earth's apex predator. After recent events, I think the class will benefit from your unorthodox perspective. Samir stepped forward, hands in his pockets, gaze sweeping the room. The apex predator isn't the one with the biggest teeth, or the sharpest claws, he began. It's the one that can walk into a crisis, figure out what's wrong, and fix it. Sometimes that means fighting. More often, it means thinking. Observing. Breaking the rules everyone else follows because you know a better way. A murmur rippled through the room. He let it hang, then added, we're not apex because we're perfect. We're apex because we survived our own stupidity long enough to learn from it. Oak's eyes gleamed, and for a moment, Samir could swear there was pride there. After class, Xra caught up to him in the hall. The contract's ready, she said. He took it, scanning quickly. The numbers were good. The autonomy was better. You know, she said, you could have made this a victory lap. Rubbed it in everyone's faces. Samir tucked the datapad under his arm. Breaking things is easy. Fixing them takes work. If you want the jungle to stay alive, you don't burn it down to prove you're the top cat. Her mouth curved in a rare, genuine smile. So you'll sign? Maybe. He started to walk away, then glanced back. But next time your family wants to clean something, start by asking what lives there. That night, Samir returned to the viewport. The gas giant rolled on below, storms older than humanity churning in endless motion. The station hummed and rattled around him, a fragile shell of metal holding back the void. Somewhere in its heart, an ecosystem thrived because someone had noticed what no one else did. He leaned against the frame, watching the planet's shadow creep across the curve. Sometimes being an apex predator wasn't about dominance or destruction. Sometimes it was about knowing exactly which small change would keep the whole system alive. Sometimes it was just about standing your ground when everyone else thought you were wrong. And sometimes, it was about breaking the right rule at the right time. Samir smiled to himself and walked away, leaving the storms to spin on without him.